But we were just saying that you've seen a couple cycles of the city, and you've seen cycles in your own life. You've seen some highs and lows, and you have some thoughts maybe around that and big transitions, and I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So, I've been in the city since 2008, well, officially 2012. My family actually grew up over in Castro Valley, so I'm a Bay Area boy at heart. My parents decided that they were going to open up their own business, and so my childhood was basically spent in a bookstore, just surrounded by the words of everyone else who's come before us, basically, and as an only child, that leads to some very dangerous things where, because it's just my parents, that's all I interact with. Like, that's my communication style. And so growing up, it was very much, oh, he's a little precocious. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I've read like this book and this book. My parents are like, just stop reading. It's that one thing. And then we moved over to the Central Valley. So Oakdale, Modesto, Stockton. We stayed there for a long time. Graduated over in Oakdale High. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Graduated in the Valley in the early aughts, and then went back here, specifically UCSC, and graduated there. And then, I was like, God, I love this place. I love this weather. And for however it works, I got a job that was not in my major here in the city. And I've been at that job ever since.
Amazing.
All the way. So I've been, I've seen a lot, and I've seen so much of the city change. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah. The biggest, my area is Alamo Square Park. Like this is where I've been for all this time. And
headquarters.
So it is very much my headquarters. A while back we had a couple buildings over on this side of the park, and they're no longer here. And I remember way back in the day, you walk down Hayes, and you know where the Hayes Open Gym is? Mm-hmm. That wasn't an open gym. That Octavia Park area was not a park. It was a little dusty. There wasn't much in the way of outdoor activities for there. There were a lot of shops that were around. And so even though I'd walk through it, it wasn't a place that I would consider, oh yeah, I can do something here. And then over time, shops came in, and then they put the little workout places there, and then they did other stuff. And I was like, this is really cool. Okay.
Little things
over time, it built up.
Yeah.
And now I go down there, and my old man, thing comes out, and I'm like, there's too many people. Just get out of my way. There's too many people.
It's 6:30 p.m. Please go home.
I'm like, don't you people have something to do? It's 10 p.m. Like, go to bed, go inside, go to bed, call it a night. I said, I'm the only child of my parents, and of course my parents. And being an only child affords you the luxury of being able to do anything that you want yourself.
Yeah.
But it also gives a pitfall of, if you get into trouble, you are in trouble. You don't have a character to blame. You don't have a brother. You don't have a sister. You don't have anything of that. So, I was a little mischievous, not going to lie, but at the same time, it's like, my parents are just put me under that. Okay, go do what you want to do. If something happens, just let us know. Combine that with the fact that I grew up in, I was not a latchkey kid, so to speak, but combine that with the fact that in my day, you were out until the lights came on. Mm-hmm. And so you'd ride bikes, you'd play in the school, because we lived not around the school, but kind of going a block and then turning. And like the school on a map looks a block away, but there was just a couple turns to go through it. But it wasn't common for my friends and I just to go over there and just play around the school. But yeah, when I grew up in the Oakdale, Modesto area for the majority, the second half of my childhood. And my parents, like I mentioned, had a bookstore. Mm-hmm. And my summers were spent at the bookstore. So if you imagine like 8 or 9-year-old ringing up customers, doing inventory, packaging books for shipping.
Master of logistics.
Basically, yeah, at 8 or 9. And I mean, that's the thing that happens with an Asian family, but ours is blended. My dad's black, my mom's Filipino. Mm. So I got the best and worst of both worlds,
Growing up with a bookstore, I have 2 specific questions.
Yeah.
So one is, I'm always interested in kids who read a lot when they're young, because mm-hmm. they get a lot of influences, mm-hmm. especially when they don't have siblings, because it's kind of the only influence. But it's always a hero's arc. It's always depth of character told through magical realism or whatever. I'm super interested in how you think about which books you were going towards as a kid and how they shaped you.
My book of choice, now this is going to sound weird, but my book of choice was The Giver. I like The Giver. It's a great book. I would probably survive for a while in the outdoors, but I probably would have a lot of challenges. I'm used to creature comforts. Yeah. But it was just fascinating to me, being able to read about how basically a another child would survive. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can do that. And, when you're like 10 years old, you're like, your precocious little mind goes, I could, right? But that one and The Giver, those two were my biggest ones. I love The Giver. I reread it every now and then. And I get that some people, look at that literature and go, oh, it's so juvenile. Well, of course it's juvenile. It's what it's written for. That's the subject matter, or the subject audience. But those two were my absolute favorite one. The others were the Boxcar Children, obviously. That's a thing. And way back in my childhood, I would think, oh yeah, I could totally survive in Boxcar. Now I'm like, no, I need my creature comforts. I need my ceiling fan. I need my bed jet because my feet get cold. Like, it's the weird creature comforts.
Yeah. I like toilets.
Right? Like indoor plumbing is such a godsend. It's fantastic. You had to preoccupy yourself with everything. Your parents were doing adult things. They were running the business. They were making sure that you had a place to live. They were making sure that you had, food to eat, that you had school supplies. And so it wasn't a situation where I could just be like, Mom, I'm bored. It's if you tell my mom, I'm bored, okay, what do you want to do? What are you going to go do? And more importantly, if you go do that, just let me know. Let me know when you go do that. I, being surrounded by books, and then I combine that with, all the subject matter readily available to me, I wouldn't trade that for anything. It was hard work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I discovered Egypt.
No way.
Right? Like every kid discovers Egypt, dinosaurs,
feels like
airplanes.
fantasy.
It really does.
It's real.
But because my brain works in a very analytical way, even as a child, when we had our science fair, I remember we were trying to figure out what theme we wanted. I was pushing for Egypt. My teammates didn't want to, and this is like 5th grade. And I said, we need to do Egypt because we need to look at the flying buttresses of the pyramids, right? And even...
Like, this is what's going to convince those children.
Exactly. And all of them are just like, what's a buttress? Like, you're trying to teach them, and when you're passionate about something, sometimes it comes off as you're weird. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. But it was fun. I ended up doing it myself because I had no choice.
The Giver's really interesting though, because I have a little hypothesis that I think The Giver really strikes some people so strongly, because what it does is it tells a child, you are expressly uniquely good at this thing. And a lot of kids maybe wander around, they're like, what the heck am I actually good at? I want to be known for something. I want to be validated for something. And The Giver's just like, we see that you are fundamentally good at this thing. And it's like a weird little craving that kids want. Yeah.
I absolutely understand that. When I read The Giver, I kind of felt bad because, through the entire process of what they were trying to do for their society, they took away the key element that is crucial for development, which is free will.
Yeah.
If you take away the free will of someone and you resign them to a role of just caregiver or transport engineer, sanitation engineer, whatever, teacher, I think I said that, they may succeed in it, but they may not flourish in it.
Right.
And if you don't flourish in something that you want to, if you're not flourishing in something that you are in, you turn into a husk of yourself. Like the beauty of humanity as a whole is that we have the ability to choose what we want to do, and it makes everything much more beautiful. Like I originally, when I went to school as pre-med. I have a pre-med background, and when I graduated, it was with health sciences as my major, with molecular cell developmental biology as a minor. So I knew that my parents wanted me to become a doctor, and that's a Filipino thing. It's like doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those are the three, and generally it's doctor, engineer, lawyer in that order that you want. And so I knew that that's the path that I wanted to go to. But here I am and I'm in education, like just the complete furthest swing of where I was. Do I want to go into medicine? Every now and then I do. And, the thing is, when I graduated, I worked in the biotech lab for a while, and it was fun. It was it's a lab job. And, after a while, you're just like, okay, this is cool. But then I went into the actual healthcare, and I became a paramedic. And
big jump.
the things you see, it really is a big jump. But the things you see is like, you give birth, you see people's arms sticking out, or bones sticking out of their arms. Scissors sticking out of arms. You have to navigate the public, and it was a fun experience. Do not get me wrong, but the fact that I got paid less than a McDonald's worker to keep someone alive.
You're who they want in their worst moment.
Exactly, and it's just like, I'm barely getting paid $12 an hour, and I need to make sure that you are not going to die. That to me was just it jaded me a little bit. I was like, maybe this isn't the worst thing, And the thing that really just made me annoyed was, the people that you pick up when you are on emergency calls, they rarely tell you the truth. And I read people. I make it my business to read people like a book. And, if I'm showing up and you have scissors sticking out of your arm,
Yeah.
and you're telling me I tripped and fell, listen,
Yeah.
everyone trips and falls. The ER sees people who trip and fall all the time,
There's a lot of objects that happen just be standing up on the ground.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, look, listen, I don't care if you did this. I don't care if someone else did this. I need to know, am I in danger? Is my partner in danger? Are we in danger? Because I cannot help you and save you if I am down. And that's one of the first rules that they always teach you in EMS or paramedic school is BLS, scene safety, basic life support and scene safety. Those are your two things, and body isolation, which is part of, the scene safety type thing.
Yeah.
And so, after enough of that, I was like, I'm not mature enough to handle this. Like at that age, I was like, you're annoying the holy living patooties out of me. Mm-hmm. I cannot with you right now. I just cannot. So I left that, and then I ended up coming here, and I now work in IT education. So it's such a weird arc that I've gone to. My entire background is medicine, but I'm in education and IT, which worked out in the end because I actually like it, and it gives you a little bit more freedom.
It does feel like when you're operating in the world as a kid, there's a connectedness to everything. And when you're an adult, everything is isolated to location. Yeah. Within the location, you're isolated to the parts that you can interact with. You interact with it in a certain way. Everybody on their park is on their feet when you're an adult.
Yeah. One thing that I'd like to talk on that isolation actually is much more pronounced when you're older. Mm-hmm. It is a lot harder, and I mean, for me, it's exponentially harder to make the connections and make the friendships when you're older. Mm-hmm. As a kid, you see someone, hey, my name is Fred. How's it going? Want to be my friend? Boom, you're friends. Yeah. You go out. They live 3 houses away from you. Boom, that's for the entirety of your childhood. You're going places. You're doing stuff with your friend because they literally live across the street from you. Yeah. You get older, and it's a lot harder to maintain. And not only maintain, but actually create those friendships, right? Now, full disclosure, I am gay, and that adds like another level of complexity on top of the forming relationships, just platonic relationships with people on their own, right? So back in before 2018, so before the whole pandemic thing happened, I had all my friends living here. So a couple of my friends lived just across the way, up the way near Dubos. And then a couple lived across the street from me, and then a couple lived, it's just, they were nearby, and people lived close. And so we would be like, hey, want to go out? You want to go do something? Let's go do something. So we would go, and, the Castro, don't even get started on how that has changed in like the past 10 years, 20 years even. We would go out, we would go do things. And then when the pandemic hit, I remember it distinctly because our work sent out an email that said, hey, FYI, you're all permanently remote now. We're not going to ask you back. There's a very small chance, but for right now, you are permanently remote. So they made us permanently remote. And at that time, my mom, so I have my place here. My mom was taking care of my grandma. Now, a little bit backstory. My dad got pancreatic cancer, but because he is was very stubborn, he hung around for about 5 years. And pancreatic cancer is one that takes you within 6 months. Wow. Like it's once they find out that you have it, it's done. It's basically written off. But because my dad was my dad, he decided to, say, nope, not going to do it. And so he hung on for 5 years, right? Yeah. So I'd go back and forth, and I'd see my dad and all that stuff. And it's just, it's such a trip seeing your dad, who's been there all your life, just go from this person that went out with you, he'd take you boating, he'd take you canoeing, to a skeleton, a literal skeleton. And it was I remember vividly walking into that hospital room. I almost said hotel, but it wasn't. I walked into that hospital room, and I was like, okay, this is, Mm-hmm. And so when that happened, things kind of changed. My poor mom, just 1,000 sons to her, did everything that she could. And my mom's shorter than me. I'm 5'4", and she's like tinier than me and 100 pounds lighter than me, right? And I'm a hefty boy at 230, 240, and she's barely like 110, right? So my dad was like almost 6 feet, like 5'11", 5'10". But he was big, and so here's my mom like trying to help him do things. It was a very, very tough moment. Yeah. So when he passed, we were kind of just like figuring out what to do. I still lived here, and then when the pandemic hit, my grandmother needed a place to stay. So I was like, you know what? I have some retirement. Let me see what I can do. So I pulled money from my retirement and and I bought a house, but for them to stay, with the explicit intent that I'm not going to ask you to do anything. This is you right here. This is where you're going to be, and just, take care of the house. I'll come down every couple weeks or so just to, take care, but, I'll spend time, but this is our home. And the universe is weird because sometimes the timing is perfect. That house was a 3% interest rate.
Oh, nice.
And then when the second half of the pandemic hit, it wasn't big, it was only 1,100 square feet. And I was like, we need a little bit more space. So I looked around. So then I ended up selling that one and buying a larger one around 2,000 square feet, which is perfect for us. And so we got that one, and I got that one at 2.5%.
Oh my gosh.
So I am one of those guys that is very much in the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
I will die in this house.
It's not a bad place.
It is something. But I did buy in Fresno because it was and still is the cheapest place in California. Mm-hmm. The Bay Area people are starting to recognize that, hey, that's a little cheap over there. Mm-hmm. $1,800 a mortgage is pretty cheap for a quarter of an acre. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it is. That's kind of why I bought there, and it's near Amtrak, and I'm a big proponent of public transport. So let's just go. Let's go. I don't want to drive. I don't have to drive. I'm going to take the train, sleep, watch movies, and not have to stress about it. So they stay there, and so I go back and forth. So I still have my place up here, and I have my place down there. And, that's really difficult because going back, you had mentioned the challenge of maintaining connections. As a kid, it's so easy to do so. As an adult, it's even harder. And if you're in the situation that I'm in, where you have two different places in two very different locales, like the environments on both are very, very different from each other. The actual, the climate of both, it could not be any more different than each other, right? And so whenever I go back and forth, I always feel like I don't have the connections to either. Like I'm a part of both, but I'm not part of all of it, right? I have my friends here, but they've dwindled. There's 3 left. Of a cohort of 20-something people, only 3 are here. And it's hard because you ask, hey, you want to go out? Want to go do something? Oh, I can't. I'm tired. I'm like, I get it, because at 6 p.m. I'm done. I want to sit and watch Golden Girls. But I'm making friends over there. But I'm also I miss here. I miss the gays here. I miss my community here. Yeah. Fresno has done a good job of changing its mind and changing its perception, but it's not San Francisco. Yeah. In that environment. And so, whenever I go out and I enjoy the times with my friends, it's very, we fall into that classic trap of, oh, remember when this, remember when that, instead of, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this place? This place just opened up, this place just did this. What do you think of that in the present rather than all in the past and whatnot? Yeah. And it does make it harder. And dating life is absolutely brutal. I have no dating life. I try, but it's just, if you're not in either location long enough to establish something meaningful, it is very, very difficult to maintain that type of situation. And whatever anyone tells you, long distance relationships are very, very, very difficult to maintain. And I mean, my longest long distance was from here to Daly City. But there were a lot of red flags that I, in my youth, decided to ignore. And the ground question is, would I do it again? Kind of, sort of. Because I'm character building. Yeah, but the thing is, it is character building, but I miss him. Yeah. And I miss the joy of being around with someone who you genuinely did not despise. And I always told him, I was like, listen, I don't know how to swim, and it's legitimate. I don't know how to swim. I'm hefty, and I will sink like the Titanic. I said, I don't know how to swim, but I would walk on water for you. And I made the mistake of saying, I love you. First, which I'm not saying it's a mistake for anyone to say it, but I just, it was a weird thing because for the entirety of it, he was always like, oh, I'm not gay, I'm straight, I'm this. And like I said, red flags. But when you're in love, I hate that word, but I love it. But when you're in that environment and you're you really just love someone, you ignore it. And I made the mistake of telling him, oh yeah, I love you. Or I think I love you, right? I wanted to soften it a little bit and not make it so... Exactly. I didn't want to just be like, I love you. And, it was just, you could tell he wasn't comfortable with it. And so I backed off and whatnot. And then, it's not the fun story. He ended up ghosting me. 5
Dirty.
years. 5
That
years.
is dirty.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
I mean, honestly, that was a lot of trauma. That was a crap ton of trauma.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of therapist hours built into trying to figure out why, because all of a sudden, like, you're talking with this person that you genuinely care for. And all of a sudden, the next day, it's just done. No responses to phone calls, no responses to texts. I even went to his house, knocked on the door. You could hear movement on the other side of the door.
Weak.
And nothing. It really was. And I was just like, I don't understand, But and honestly, that trauma it's still taking time to process. And I know that there are people who will be like, oh, you just need to get over it. I'm like, that is not easy to get over. Like when you are...
a decade.
And the thing is, I don't emotionally invest in people. It's a thing because I have a wall that I keep up for myself. I just have a wall that I keep up for myself because, I learned a long time ago. It's like, trust your family. And even then, keep a guard up.
He's got a long tail.
He's got a thing on. And even up to now, it's just, it's a challenge because even though I put myself out, there's always that thing that comes up in the back of my head. That's like, hey, remember when?
Yeah.
And I just go, oh yeah. But then the other part of my voice, the other side of my voice goes, yeah, but that was back then. That's not now. And you can't guarantee that that's exact situation is going to happen again. Yeah. So why? And that's something that my therapist has always just been like, when that voice comes up, always reply with, okay, and is my statement now that I use. So whenever I have that doubt or I have that thing of, oh, this isn't worth it. Okay, and you think it's not worth it? Well, if you're not going to do anything about it, of course it's not going to be worth it. But if you put yourself out there, it will. So it's a very slow progress, but that's just, in the recesses of my mind, that makes it even more harder for me. And I'm not saying that that's a universal experience that other people have, but for me, it makes it harder for me to maintain those types of interpersonal relationships, combining with but going back and forth between the two cities. It's not easy. And it challenges you and it makes you go, where do I want to end up in order to settle down?
Yeah.
And I genuinely, I would love to settle down. That's a me thing, but I know what I can offer to the table. But it's one of those things where it's like I have to make that commitment to it. But as of right now, it's just like, there's really not much here to commit. San Francisco's not very friendly to the dating scene, hetero or non. It's a very tough scene to get to know people.
It sounds like there's maybe a couple different restarts that have to happen. So recapturing the 20 cohort of friends is going to be hard, but it also is tied to a time and a phase of life and maybe a pre-COVID pivot. And it's really hard to recapture maybe a restart, but also with one of your lives, whether it's a Fresno life or a San Francisco life, is going to be a restart in some capacity because you'll be rebuilding your identity in one. It'll be post-decision. Yeah. What does it look like for you to have a restart like that?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I don't know if there's an answer to that because who I am as a person here in San Francisco is fundamentally different than who I am as a person in Fresno.
That's crazy.
Right? Like I have to basically live two different versions of myself. They're not bad versions. They're just different versions. Right? And I liken that to the pre-acceptance of the LGBTQ community. We had to live ourselves in two different versions. Mm-hmm. It was I am heteronormative, and then the other side is I am family. I am a friend of Dorothy, right? And that was born out of the not fear, but the genuine understanding of you do not know who to trust. And so unless you were in a safe space, you could not live as a friend of Dorothy. You had to put up that wall of I am heteronormative because I don't want you to know who I am because that invites many things up to and including physical altercations. Yeah. And it's a tough thing to
real violence.
It was legitimate back then. Still is today, but not as much. But for if I were to restart, and it's going to bite me in the butt. But if I were to restart, oh my gosh, big fluffy dog. I would commit a little bit more. If we're going at 100%, I would commit like around 60% to San Francisco. It's a lot better for my being and my health being here. And I feel like I don't have to be on guard the entire time. Fresno, I don't have to be on guard because, I have friends, I have family. My mom is very, she's very accepting to it. I could tell she's sad that she's not going to get any grandchildren, but, I'm working on it, Ma. I'm working on that. But having that restart, it's learning how to shut off San Francisco me, switch over to Fresno me, and then switching off Fresno me and turning on San Francisco me whenever I'm in either or. I think the hardest part of the entire thing is just establishing a base, because if you're not here, if you're not in the city, people forget you. Your friends forget you, and it's the same exact thing with Fresno as well. Like, if you're not there physically, you are going to disappear. That's a big mosquito.
Is that what it is?
That is a mosquito.
Oh my gosh!
I'm glad it's going to you, because I usually get bit, and I turn into the feast of all of them. Don't send it to me. Go away.
But being present seems to be the primary thing.
Yeah.
Which that sounds transactional almost in a little.
It is. It really does sound transactional, and honestly, like, I'm not a fan of it. But it's just the way. It's the way it is, and I hate saying that because that's such a trite statement, but it is the way it is.
Yeah.
You have to be transactional, otherwise you don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
I try to change the way that I compose myself so it isn't as transactional.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you mirror what other people give you, right? And so if the requirement for maintaining that interpersonal relationship with other people is transactional, you're going to meet that 100%. And I tried changing it, but I found that the dating area, hi puppy dog, bye puppy dog, maintaining it, but I found that the interpersonal relationships here and the dating scene here is very transactional, and I don't know how to break through that. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know how to break through that. I've tried, and I am, like I said, I'm a nerd, right? I'm a nerd, I'm a geek, but I also powerlift. So I'm a powerlifting nerdy geek, right? Yeah. But it's weird because I can't find my people here. I don't know where they exist. The gym buddies are I mean, I'll say hi to the gym buddies, but the gym buddies are the gym buddies, and I am never gonna have a six pack in my life, but I can pick up 600 pounds. Yeah. Like that's one of the two, but I don't know where my people are. I don't know how to find my people. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how to change that transactional to be more authentic. There's a lot of people that I've met are very, I don't want to say closed off, but a lot of them are very just, leave it as it is, or don't get too close. And then again, that may be the thing with the gay community, where the opportunities to form, closer interpersonal relationships is very, very hard to come by. It's not some. It's just my experience, though. Like, I want to preface that has been my experience. It's very hard to find situations where people want to form that deeper connection. It is very transactional, and I don't know how to break through that. I try, but it's always met with, just that. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go now. Bye. That type of situation. So. Yeah. I wish I could give you a different answer, and I wish I could tell you, oh yeah, I solved that mystery. I don't know.
It seems like it takes a hyper-alignment. So you're mentioning that you have hobbies that are both in the physical and the mental. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people's lives tend to segment themselves into maybe 3 columns, and they operate in those 3 columns. So if there's not alignment of all 3, it's hard to find a partner. If you only align on one, you only talk about that thing, you don't bridge very much, but you're a bridged individual. So it's hard to find a cross.
It really is. And I go into weird interests, and my interests just flow all over the place. Mm-hmm. My recent midlife crisis, I hate to say it, but it is my midlife crisis, is linguistics and language learning.
Cool.
And so now I've taken a serious interest in languages, which means that I have decided that I'm going to learn 8 different languages all at one time.
Amazing.
Which is
gotta reach for the stars.
Which is idiotic. And I'm like, who the hell thought this was a good idea? So right now, ik learn Nederlands and ik learn Deutsch. Yo hablo español y también yo parlo italiano. El français, I'm working on my Arabic, and then so I'm working on it. But when you have an interest that's so cerebral, and it is what it is, it's very cerebral. It's people look at you like, ugh, like, what do you do with that? I'm like, I like to travel. I want to go travel. That's a thing for me.
You've opened yourself up to billions more connections,
right? And it's so much fun. However, I will say that I have a love-hate relationship with Dutch. It's,
as everyone does.
It's similar to English, but different enough. I absolutely hate the die, der, das in German. Mm-hmm. It is the most useless thing. The Germans just... That and fax machines in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. Why, Germany? Why? Mm-hmm. I'm finding Greek to be the easier language to learn. Who knows why? and then all the others are kind of okay. The Chinese is fun, but the learning all of the characters is a pain in the butt, and I cannot write my opinion at all. It's so bad. It's not great. But I try to combine that. Like when I'm at the gym and I'm doing my lifts, you have, because when you're doing powerlifting, you have a very long break. You have like about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, sometimes 5 if you're doing extra heavy sets, in between each set. And so I will sit there and I will do languages and I'll practice my languages. So I'm the guy on the floor, the big beefy dude who's talking to himself in Greek.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand. It's so funny. People are like, "What is going on? What
break
is
his
that?"
brain with that 600-pound lift.
It's hard though, because like I said in the very beginning, everything costs money.
Yeah.
And while you can learn with online tutors and going to take classes, that costs money. And finding people who speak the language natively to practice with you doesn't cost money, but it costs a lot of time. Yeah. And you'll usually end up meeting like a cafe to chat, to do all the things. The Germans hate practicing with you because they just switch over to English immediately, and they're just like, "We speak English."
It's the most functional way to communicate right now.
Same thing with the Dutch, because once they figure out that you don't speak Dutch fluently, they'll switch back and it'll be easier in English. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Yeah. I have to practice. Like, this is a legitimate thing for me. But yeah, when your interests are all over the place and you don't have one singular thing that you hyper focus on, it makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Because like things interest me. It's fun. And I think part of that is from childhood, when you had to entertain yourself. You don't have the opportunity to find, to have someone entertain for you. It's literally you. Yeah. Go find something to do. Literally, that was a statement my parents used on me all the time. Go find something to do. Yeah. Okay, like I'll read, I'll do something. So, but yeah, it's I wish I could tell you I knew how to bridge all of that together more so and in a fluid way, but I don't. I go with what interests me at the time, and I'm hoping that my current interests will go a little bit longer than just a year, because I really need to be fluent. And I'm doing as much as I can to get into that fluency. So, but yeah, that's a fun thing. I'm cerebral in that way.
Well, Fred, this has been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This.
The weather is cooperating. Yeah. Has cooperated.